start.
Good afternoon, members of the media in the 40th Estate. Thank you so much for coming onto this presser, where we as TAJAMUKA would want to talk to the nation. The events that have unfolded in the country recently has made all of us to seek to take some action and to be seen to be doing something. We can't just fold our hands when the situation is deteriorated like this. Speaking to you here is Comrade Juma, and over there is Comrade Nets, and our leader, Comrade Promise Mkhwananzi, is going to give you a presser, and we'll take questions after that. Thank you. Over to you, Comrade.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the press. I'm going to read a resolution of the movement. TAJAMUKA. TAJAMUKA SESIJIKILE, the People's Revolutionary Movement, deeply concerned by the gloom and despair born out of the abject poverty, hunger and suffering of our people, which has reached desperate levels. The most tragic reality of it all is that this untold suffering is not a result of natural causes beyond the reach or the comprehension of men, but a deliberately man-made suffering made and created by the very people who continue to claim that we gave them the mandate to ensure the betterment of our situation and the resolution of our decade-long political, economic and social crisis. It is our strong-held view that we must now come together in our collective wisdom and strength as citizens to bring the madness to an end. We will not belabor you with the issues and problems that are already on the public domain, from the unprecedented corruption by state authorities, including the president, the first family, and all their henchmen and women, the grand and astronomical theft of the national fiscus by the RBZ officials, Mthuli Ncube, John Mangudra, and all their cartels, the shameless annihilation and decimation of the official opposition in the country, the unrelenting onslaught on the 2012 Constitution in order to undermine the rule of law, to undermine democracy, and to entrench Mnangagwa's illegal, illegitimate, and criminal rule. The harassment of the vendors, combi operators, and the generality of the informal sector. The appalling conditions of our civil servants in their totality, from the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, the police, the prison officers, the soldiers, and other government bureaucrats who bear the brunt to keep the country on its two knees, who are paid peanuts and treated like trash by the very government that purports to be their employer. The list of the ills for which this government is responsible is endless and inexhaustive. In short, Mnangagwa and his government have failed and must leave. The movement believes that the solution to the current standoff between Mnangagwa and his ZANU-PF on the one hand and the people of Zimbabwe on the other is a decisive, resilient, sustained season of peaceful, non-violent, and action-oriented national protests. We are encouraged by the pockets of protest that have mushroomed around the country, defying all manner of fear and intimidation, driven mainly by the young people, the nurses, the teachers, and indeed the generality of our ordinary men and women, the citizens. TAJAMUKA has carried out intensive and extensive consultations with various progressive groupings from the civil society, the churches, the students' movement, and all other progressive forces. We are convinced that the people of Zimbabwe are ready and geared to lodge the final straw against the regime and restore the dignity and the legacy of this country. In so doing, we are inspired and encouraged by the brave and resilient institutions and the people of Malawi, and we verily believe that we too can do it. In the coming season, TAJAMUKA urges the people of Zimbabwe to brace themselves for sustained season of peaceful but relentless protests until the regime yields to the just and legitimate concerns and demands of our people. The movement will engage various and unprecedented forms of action on the ground in the coming weeks. We urge you to support our cadres and amplify our protests and actions in ways permissible in any democratic society. We are doing this fully aware and prepared for the brutality and barbaric nature of this regime. Nevertheless, we are also doing this well within the confines of our rights and privileges under the country's supreme law, the Constitution. We will do everything possible to minimize unnecessary casualties while aiming to strike the biggest impact towards genuine change and national transformation. But we will never surrender our rights and freedoms deriving from the Constitution, and which were earned through a protracted struggle by our forebears for the realization and attainment of these precious rights and freedoms. If our forefathers earned these rights with their lives, we will defend them with our lives too. These pockets of actions you will see are aimed to building the national momentum, the national convergence, and the national consensus, which should culminate into a huge, one open and peaceful national day of action. We are therefore left with no choice but to act together in concert in order to bring our long-standing suffering to an end. I thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, comrade. Now we'll take a few questions. If there are any points of clarity, we'll tackle them, the three of us, and respond to you.
Thank you. Maybe my first question will be, we have had these calls for demonstrations, but only what we have only seen or witnessed are a number of people just getting into the streets or trying to demonstrate, and then they get arrested. What is the difference now? How different is this call from those other calls which have only resulted in a few pickets of people?
Okay. Next question.
Mine is the gospel in the streets is saying that a lot of activists, they now don't have money, so they're now looking for money, organizing demonstrations so that they get arrested and they get money. Are you there for the people who are just falling under the same blanket?
Last one, maybe third one, so that we can follow them at once. Yes?
Last week we heard about Tinengang calling for also like what you guys are doing. Are you working together?
All right, we'll tackle these three, and then after that, if there are any other clarity-seeking questions, then we'll take them. We can start with
Yeah, the first question relates to the fact that some demonstrations have failed and so on and so forth, that people have been calling for demonstrations. First and foremost, what it points to is the brutality and the intolerance of the government. It clearly demonstrates that this government, the military government that is in place, has totally shrunk the democratic space. So the citizens are unable to freely practice and enjoy the rights which naturally arise from the constitution of the country. And this is a very important point for the broader audience, even for the international community, to understand that all the pretenses about democracy in Zimbabwe are a mere facade. There is no democracy in this country. The sooner we realize that we are dealing with a coup and a militarized government, the better. Because in that way we are going to devise strategies which are relevant to the type of regime that we are dealing with. Secondly, well, I wish I could tell you what is different, but because it is of a strategic importance to us, I'm not going to divulge how different it's going to be. But if you followed the statement, I spoke about pockets of protests that are going to start to emerge. They will be instantaneous, they will be short and small, they will be very small people. In some instances, they will be anonymous. And this is because we are dealing with a creature which does not permit open democratic contestations. It's also illustrated by what you have seen Mnangagwa in court with some cabals doing to the opposition. I hope I've answered you. The second question that relates to mine. Okay, maybe Comrade Juma can add.
On the second one, maybe to start with the is if you look at the three of us who are seated here, would you see any face that has lacked food or something?
That's what I was about going to say actually.
Look, there's one writer who once said, if we keep on looting, it will come to an extent where there's nothing to loot and the poor won't have anything to eat except to eat the richer or those who think that they are better. You can never be better in a society where everyone else is poor. So whether I've had food or anything, it's besides the point. We're not calling for anyone's money. We don't need any money. What we just need is everyone come forward, your service to your own nation. This is about patriotism. It's about saving the nation. It's not about money. We can do this with the zero budget without any money.
Yeah.
So we don't want anyone's money. We want your involvement. Be it you guys of the 4th Estate, be it wherever they are working. You can help us with this one. It's not about money. It's about all of us. Yes, you might be eating today. You might be better. Chuguri was maybe a year or two ago, but now he's running around all over. We don't know where he is and he's losing everything. It will happen to you. It might be happening to Marco or anyone else right now, but it's coming to you. The sooner we realize that they will kill us individually and finish us all, unless if we unite together and act as a nation for the betterment of this country and bring this to an end. That's what we're doing.
And also our quest at TAJAMUKA is for the whole nation. So if there's any donor who can pay, we have 12 million people who can afford to pay them, yes, they must bring that money. This is a call for the whole nation to come and participate. So there's no one who can be paid and be brought there.
Yeah, I think the comrades are raising very critical questions. You cannot finance a revolution.
Yeah.
The revolution finances itself. The people sponsor the revolution by their own participation. And that is our call today. And a series of other follow-up communications with the generality of our people are going to be held. We urge the public to remain focused. These are diversionary tactics historically embedded in the ZANU-PF strategy. This one has been bought, that one is working for the Americans, that one is called for sanctions, that one and this and that. I think by now we must be in a position where, as a country, we're able to focus on the things that are affecting us on a day-to-day basis and act together in that manner. I'm very happy about the defiance of the generality of our citizens against some ridiculous directive by the RBZ and this guy Nick Mangwana on eco-cage. You see, we cannot continue to take orders from SASCAMs if we are going to solve the problems of this country. We cannot continue to listen to propaganda from SASCAMs if we are going to solve the problems of this country. And talking about Senengami, talking about whoever, every other progressive force today, we are appealing to you. We are appealing to you. This is not about Juma, this is not about Munez, this is not about Promise, this is not about an individual. This is about Zimbabwe. This is about all of us. We must now come together and put aside all those things. Who is going to get the glory? Who is getting money where? And so on and so forth. Those are the things that ZANU have repeatedly used to divide us, used to divert us from the primary and core business of a democratic movement. The primary and core business of a democratic movement is to confront a regime that is in place. And a regime that is in place using all manner of unlawful and illegal means. This is an illegitimate government, just to remind the nation. We are dealing with a government that came to power using unconstitutional means and that to date continues to remain in power unconstitutionally. Furthermore, they are actually now tampering with that very constitution which they have already violated. They are calling for amendments of the constitution. A constitution which was passed by more than 90% of the people in a referendum is already being amended to undermine the rule of law, to undermine democracy, to undermine separation of powers, to undermine institutions that are supposed to oversee and hold these people accountable. So we have a crisis, we have a serious crisis. And the sooner we realize that the people that we are dealing with have totally no conscience, we are dealing with rotten people. We are dealing with people that even if he sees $1 today, President Nangagwa will pick it up and put it in his pocket. That is the level of greed and the insatiable appetite for wealth that we are dealing with. So we need to come together and bring these things to an end.
Just to emphasize them, I need on the working together with Senengami and others. This is not political. It's about the whole of Zimbabwe. It's patriotism. It's service to the nation, not to any political party or leader. We are not after that. Look, we have an example of drugs here, which has stolen 60 million from the Zimbabwean people using the first family. Look at who was part of the first victims of COVID-19 in Zimbabwe. It was Makamba Zororo, a well-connected ZANU-PF family person. But they lost their life to COVID. Why? Because the state is stealing from them. It's stealing from ZANU-PF. It's stealing from MDC. It's stealing from Mambokusile, whoever it is. So this is about a national consensus. Zimbabweans coming together, especially us, the young, and saying, no, enough is enough. We can't continue going to school, getting qualified, we don't work, we don't get jobs. They can't just be stealing at us. We go to hospital, there's nothing. 60 million, if I tell you, if converted to rands, it must be in billions. It can make all provincial hospitals in Zimbabwe to get to the standards of South African hospitals. That's what they've stolen from you, if you want to know how they've taken from you. Imagine people who are dying of silly preventable diseases right now. Because we are just, all these people speaking, ZANU-PF youth guys speaking, do you know what they are really protecting? They're just protecting Mnangagwa and they're about to keep on stealing from us. It must stop, it must come to an end.
So what about the general feeling that people have that most of the activities that civil society organizations and social movements do are mostly centered in the urban centers? In your strategies, TAJAMUKA, what are you going to do to ensure that you reach out to those people in the rural areas, where ZANU-PF still has a strong out?
Okay, as you know, TAJAMUKA already has the national reach.
Yes.
It's embedded in the citizens across the length and breadth of our country. I can tell you with confidence that we are ubiquitous in this country called Zimbabwe, and even beyond our borders. We have got national and international presence, and we are going to use that reach and that presence effectively. That is why we are communicating through the media, because we know that this media is going to reach every corner of our country. And every citizen, they're going, one way or the other, they will get our message. And we want the people to prepare themselves. We want to see these localized protests starting to take place on their own. If you are at a local level, there is no water, or a councillor is misbehaving, or whoever it is, we want the people in that particular locality to start to hold that councillor accountable. If there is a ZANU-PF, whatever, warlord, who is there intimidating the people, we want the people to group up and confront him. If there is if there are ZANU-PF officials who are stealing money from tobacco farmers using these RTGS rates and so on and so forth, we want the farmers to stand together and resist that threat. That's what we're talking about. And we are going to be making sure that all the forces are coordinated to drive a peaceful and non-violent national protest, which is permissible in a democratic society. That is why we're speaking openly and in the open. If they think that people should be arrested for peaceful protests, it's up to them. But we believe, and as we stated in our statement, we hold those freedoms dear to us. There is nothing that will stop us from exercising what we verily believe to be our constitutional and democratic right. And we want all citizens to awaken to that spirit of asserting themselves as citizens, asserting their rights and saying, what I'm doing it because I'm lawfully entitled to do this by the laws of this country, and I must be doing it. If people are doing criminal activities, that's a separate issue. And ZANU-PF, over the years, they have tried to criminalize and to delegitimize a legitimate and peaceful and lawful struggle of the people. And we need that to be clarified.
Do you think...
Sorry, you said you will not divulge some of your strategy, but any timelines, because we are now accustomed to this protest.
Okay, we are saying that protests must start as soon as yesterday, right? At the initial level, it doesn't matter wherever you are. If you feel that you're discontented by the manner in which this government is dealing with you, you must carry out some form of peaceful protest. If you feel that you want to reject bond notes, for example, you must carry out some action which shows the authority that we don't want this bond note. Okay? and so on and so forth. Various things that are there in the country. And speaking about bond notes, in 2016, we had a very clear position as TAJAMUKA to say that this money was a facade driven by the will to loot, in particular by the directors of the RBZ. There are about 5 or 6 directors at the RBZ who have been there forever. And we think that these guys must leave. They are the people who are always insisting that we must have our own currency in order to do ABCD. But the reality is that they want to use that facility to loot money. You understand what I mean? The argument was, we want to bring bond notes to solve the cash crisis. Was the cash crisis solved? It was not solved.
4 years
it has not
later.
been solved. Instead, there is more confusion in the economy, and they thrive in that confusion. That is the simple reason why these people don't want the United States dollars to be in place. So yes, we say, we the citizens, we totally reject the bond note, because it is not meant to serve the citizens, but it is meant to serve those who print money, those who flaunt money at the black market. And those are the very same people, the government officials, the ministers, and the RBZ top officials. And we must bring them to account.
Okay, there's been a talk in the streets that is saying that most of the protest group have been used by ZANU-PF in terms of their faction or within their party. Are you part of them, or there's something else going on?
We are not part of ZANU-PF. We have never been. The 3 of us here, none of us has ever been part of ZANU-PF, or ever been. Okay, and we don't want to hear this again. In 2016, we were never part of Mnangagwa, we were never part of G40. We were fighting our own struggle. Unfortunately, that struggle was then hijacked by the Mnangagwa faction and the military, and they facilitated their coup and so on and so forth. But those are the lessons learned as we move forward. We should never again allow anybody to hijack the people's struggle. This struggle is about the ordinary person. This struggle is about the poor workers and the appalling working conditions that they experience on a daily basis. This struggle is about vendors, the informal sector, combi operators, and all those who are being denied the right to pursue their livelihoods. That is what about. It's about the poor people, the unemployed, the students. It's about ensuring that the national cake is shared equally and equitably. It is about the economy. It is about the well-being of our people. It is about the hospitals. It is about access to education. It is not about power.
That's it.
I think
If there are no more questions, we want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming through and for disseminating this information.